as of today, one of them might need to go into next week, if I remember correctly. I believe middle schools have done their pickups, and high schools are on their way to doing theirs. And if you haven't heard from your high school yet, you will be very shortly. They were just finalizing some things and balancing it with graduation. So they were working on that for next week. And that would be book returns, anything like that as well. The next thing I want to talk a little bit about were plans for the fall. We talked last time about how we are waiting for some more information. In the interim, Kelly has sent out surveys to staff and to families to gather some information about how they're feeling about things. I know that Superintendent Lindbergh had heard some parents voice concerns about health and safety for their student in the fall, and that's totally understandable. We don't know where we're going to be in the fall. Our state superintendent is saying we may need to think about having a plan, but then understanding that 6 weeks in, we may have to close down for a few weeks and be able to pick that back up again. So we really don't have all the answers in terms of what it's going to be like for us. But what we can do is plan some contingencies. And so that's what we're going to be working on now. Today we received through the county a planning guide from the NIET, the National Institute of Excellence in Teaching. We're going to be taking a careful look at that. It's got some great suggestions, ideas for what to make sure you don't miss, because there's so much to think about, from transportation to how do you catch those kids up who weren't able to participate this year. They were a minority, but they need to be caught up. We need to work with them. How do you do that within the context of everything else? If you have parents who aren't comfortable sending their students, what can we provide those students for at-home learning? If we end up with a blended model, what will that look like? How will transportation be implemented in those cases? What is cleaning going to look like? What are our classrooms going to look like? So those are things that we're going to work with our employee groups on to help facilitate the plan for those. And we are still waiting. We're hearing the governor's committee will have its recommendations mid-month, mid-June. I think that would be a good place for us to start. We don't want to plan anything that would go against any of those recommendations. We want support from our state government and our state Department of Education. But the wheels are turning. We've got some thoughts running. We're talking to county colleagues as well. And we will probably have an update every time we meet about that for a while. And I believe, unless there are any questions, that's all I have for this evening. Oh, except that, the next time we meet, school will be over for the year, which I could not believe that yesterday when it dawned on me. So I think it's important, I know I've done this before, but it's important again to give a huge shout out for our staff, our teachers who have really risen to the challenge of learning to and implementing online learning and remote learning this year. I'm amazed at what they've been able to do. I'm proud to work with them. Our administrators have done the same. They really have stepped up. It's been amazing to see, and I humbly offer them a debt of gratitude for all they've done. Questions?
Lisa, if I can jump in. Whenever it is decided, and I know we're still 3 months away or nearly 3 months, are public districts each going to have their own options to decide how to do it, or is it going to be governed basically at the state level, and this is kind of how you're going to do it, and that's, we would follow their whatever?
You know what, that's actually a great question, Bob, and what normally occurs at the state level is that they give us some bigger parameters to live within. Normally, each district then is responsible to come up with a plan within those parameters. That's what they did with the MESA. When we went to remote learning, the implementation plan had bigger parameters, and we decided what we were doing within that. So I guess we have to wait and see. We're not quite sure. We're hoping for maybe a little more direction than we have sometimes had in the past, and yet we know that that's not normally been the case. But whatever it is, we'll figure it out. We have smart people all around us, and we'll work together and make it work. My gut is we're going to have a couple different plans, and not just one. So.
All right, thank you.
Lisa and Scott, if I could just acknowledge what you guys did for the graduation. I think it's been, you guys have really gone above and beyond and working and trying to make this the best that it can be. Unfortunately, the COVID situation is making it very difficult. And I have a 2020 graduate this year as well, but from college. But I understand the feeling. I had a 20-minute virtual ceremony in my living room where I watched my daughter graduate from college, and it's not fun. It stinks. It's not what you had hoped. But I think adding that bit of being able to walk across something is that's symbolic, and I think that's great. I mentioned to Scott, and I'm not sure if we're doing this, but if there was going to be at any point or when they walk across that, if there was some way that we could play that the music, the graduating music that generally plays when the procession walks into the hall. So I think that really invokes a lot of feelings and thoughts for families and for the graduates. So if we could make that happen, or I don't know, maybe we already did, but I just thought I'd put my 2 cents in on that. But thank you for the work. I know that you've all have been trying to move with this stay-at-home order as it changes, and what does this mean, and how does it apply, and what limits we can push to make this graduation the best it can be for Waterford families. So thank you.
Yeah, and you know what? It was our pleasure to do that, but I do have to acknowledge that Kelly was right in there with us, along with the 3 high school principals, have done a great job. And I know that John Gregory has worked hard to develop a program for KMS as well. And Nadine's got Life Tracks going, and CVS. I mean, there's just, I know that for us, we look at our comprehensive high schools in Durant, but there are a lot of ancillary students who are getting certificates of completion and all of those things. And I think I saw Kelly unmute for a minute when you asked the question. Kelly, were you going to say something?
Yes, I was just going to say that we are working on that music piece. We're trying to see how we can make that logistically happen. I would agree that music is kind of like the same when you hear the music when a bride's coming down the aisle. You automatically hear it. You know what's happening next. So we are working on that, and we'll hope we'll have good news soon. But I can't say we're 100% yet, but it's in progress.
And for board members who are there for 6 hours listening to that song over and over, we're just going to remember this moment at the administration, because it is a long time to listen to that song, but I totally agree with you, John Paul. It matters to the graduate, and that's what matters here. So,
yeah. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Fun to have Kelly Allen come up and talk about communications. And so she's in with the team every day, high school principals. As you can imagine, during especially the last 10 to 12 weeks, there has been so much communication that's gone out. And we think that's been important to give just some reassurance of the things that we're doing, and to make sure that our community and our students know that we're listening to feedback. Remember, we implemented the Ask WSD. We have the FAQ. Now that we're even surveying our parents, I'll have Kelly talk to you a little bit about that. Parent, staff, and surveys. I think she probably has a couple of things with graduation, and then a little bit of the bond campaign work that we've got going, and regarding social media as well. Kelly?
Absolutely, thank you. Yes, we've had no shortage of communication, and really just the need for communication. So we have been working our best to make sure people know what's going on and that their questions are answered. And we also appreciate that we've been given a little bit of grace from our staff and our parents and our students as we are working through getting those answers, because unfortunately they're not always readily available. I'll start first with the survey process. We did send out information last week explaining our plans for the fall, which is we are planning on it. We don't want to put the cart before the horse, that we do have wheels in motion, though, as we work through what's going to be best. With that, we did send out last week our survey to our staff members, that survey is specifically directed toward concerns and expectations for the fall. And I will say that by midweek, we already had over 700 staff members who have responded. So that's just great to hear that people are taking the time out of their busy schedules to tell us. And it kind of gives us a heads up that they wanted to tell us. So we're very happy that we took that opportunity. The parent survey will be going out early next week. That is a combination. It asks several questions in leading down the road of remote learning and what they believe has worked, what hasn't, the amount of time they've been spending with their student, technology, things along those lines. And then the second portion is asking questions about the fall. We did intend to hopefully get out by the end of this week, but there's a few questions we want to make sure we're asking. We're getting them all right and getting the right answers out there. So we are going to put something out on Friday. We also wanted to be mindful of all the communication we have had to put out recently. We wanted to give time for that communication to breathe. To send a survey after today's message we need a little bit of time to let people process what's going on in the world. So that's where we're at with COVID and the communication piece. Moving on to graduation, it's been a fun time. We have been meeting pretty regularly, but it's been a great group. We have bounced back from several different hurdles, and I must say, big thank you to our police department. It was difficult to make the change to move, but we have to do what's best for our community. And they came right on board with helping us figure out how to make sure things happen on the 14th. We didn't know if there were going to be any lifts in the executive order, and so they were able to give us different things they would like to see to help them help us on the 14th. So it was very appreciated that they came to the table and had the conversation with us to help us make sure everything goes well on the 14th. So it's signs, it's decorations, it's videos, it's music. There's a lot. It's different, but I think it's going to be amazing. I think this will be something everyone will remember. And while it's very different, different is special. So I'm very excited about that. The videos are coming right along. Don't forget, those actually premiered the day before we have our procession, our diploma procession on Sunday. So Saturday evening, those will be at 6, 7, and 8 p.m. And all those links will be posted to our website early next week. Moving on to the bond, we put out a little bit of information to board members last week regarding where we're at. The informational campaign is going to get started here. You will start to notice details, fast facts on our social media. We do have our website up and running that has been there for a couple weeks now. And once again, that is something that will continue to grow. Wonderful visuals of the different things that will be happening at the elementaries, the middle schools, the high schools, what people should expect to see. While it's all modified because we're not doing much face-to-face right now, we're going to make sure that we use every option we have and every medium we have to get the word out. We will be putting out letters to our community about absentee ballot time, which is in the ballpark of June 20th. And we will be scheduling some upcoming town halls at this point that will be virtual to ensure that we can stay within guidelines. And pretty much everything is just moving forward. Any questions about any of that?
Yeah, well, I can. The cleaner? Yeah. The cleaner will really help keep those teeth from getting
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I can.
Thank you, Kelly. So just thank you, team. Again, our fall planning, just as parents are listening in, we're making plans and looking at how did our remote learning go thus far in the last 10 to 12 weeks. Looking at a hybrid, if we have some students coming in and then also some of the work going online and also face-to-face. But with two of those three, we have to talk about how are we going to keep our staff and students safe. The transportation piece, I think, as Lisa mentioned, in those things are changing very quickly as we're all watching the news and keeping in contact. So I do want to share an update I just got about an hour or two ago from the governor's task force. Apparently they're just beginning to meet, so I don't think we'll have information for next week, but I want to assure the community that we are having those discussions. That's why we're surveying our staff and our parents. And we're also doing our own assessment within the curriculum instructional team on what has worked well, some adjustments that we want to make. So it's important too that we don't get out in front of the state because there are rules and guidelines of how we are receiving per pupil funding and how many are in attendance each day. So we'll follow that guidance. But rest assured, we are working on that, and we will be excited to welcome kids back in the fall. We're working towards that. So that's all that I have for item number 7, COVID-19 update.
What do I do with this then? Put it on a regular.
Just got it.
Thank you, Bill.
So keep
Moving on
turning
down
from
to
Okay.
agenda item 8A,
Alright.
instructional devices, our student support services. Smiley Smith.
Thank you, President Rissage, and thank you, everyone. The information item that you have in your packet is related to laptop devices for our ancillary service providers. Those are our OTs, our PTs, our speech and language, school social workers, school psychologists, and they are solely meant to deliver instructional services in many ways, not certainly while we are in a remote learning environment, but they will be put to good use, even when our students return to school. We have, this is a replacement for ones that are several years old, as well as a need for those that we don't have, to make sure that our staff have the devices that they need to deliver those instructional services. These are solely meant for students with IEP. And as you can see, that funding source for those is our IDEA grant and a very small amount of general fund dollars. So,
That's fine.
I work very closely with Derek Holly and his department to secure an outstanding rate for these. We really feel that obviously the need is there to make sure that our students don't have any lapse in services by the staff not having the devices that they need to deliver those. Any questions?
Darren, maybe this is for Darren. Are we having a hard time finding these devices? I know that we had to vote pretty quickly on our last round. Is there a...
The devices the devices that are really hot right now are the more Chromebook kind of style devices, lower cost. We went a different route with this. These are actually nicer. They're much more functioning, but they're built a little heavier too. But we got a great price on them. So.
Cool.
That's why we wanted to get this information item before you at this meeting, so that you'll have a couple of weeks to take a look at it, and then when you come back, then we, with your approval, of course, it'll give us time to get these in the hands of our staff by the fall.
Excellent. Other questions for Nadine or Darren? Okay, very good. Thank you, Nadine. Thank you, Darren. Let's move on now to agenda item 8B, our short-term borrowing. Bill, do I need to give you screen sharing capabilities now, or?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. So, thank you. We're about a month and a half ahead of when we would do short-term borrowing. We're not actually borrowing the money. We're going to borrow our money in the normal process. It'd be usually the last week of September. However, we're working through the legal and the application process through Treasury. Treasury right now is furloughing staff, and so they're taking longer. So we're being proactive by being ahead of this. So there's two things. One, the furloughs concern us. That's one. And two, if the state's financial condition worsens, there is a concern about the availability of funds. Not to scare anybody, because I think everything is going to be fine, but either way, we want to stay ahead of this game. And what we want to do is we want to lock down the funds, even though we won't receive them in the bank, but have the commitments in place from the major banks, or like last year, Oppenheimer was our buyer of our short-term borrowing. So we want to make sure whoever gets this note, we get commitment from them. And so that if anything tightens up as we get towards September, we've already got a commitment. So we're applying to Treasury much earlier. It's going to take some 30 days to go through this process. And so by the end of July, or July 20th timeframe, we will get approval from Treasury, hopefully, with the furloughs and so forth in place. But that's what we're doing. And we're doing a dual role here. One is we're going to do negotiated sale. We're going to go get the money on our own. But also the reason the resolution is so thick in this process is because we're also going to enter into the state's pool. Once we get towards the end of July and determine what the financial circumstances are and the condition of the state, we will pursue what would be the most cost-effective way for Waterford, whether it's going to sell the note on the open market through a bank, or we will go in the state's pool. But it gives us options. So we want to do it early, get at the front of the line. That's one. And two, we want to leave ourselves with two different options for financial resources to make sure that we're able to get our money by the end of September, regardless of what happens financially in the economy. And that's the reason why it's becoming information and action in the same night. We hate to do action at the same time, but kind of some of the alarm bells went off with the furloughs at Treasury and in the time frame just to advance this and move it through quicker. Again, Treasury has to review the application, so rest assured that everything that we've done is on the up and up once they give us our approval.
Questions for Bill on short-term borrowing?
Bill, this is Joan. I just wanted to thank you for putting this in place, helping us to get in line, hopefully before a lot of other districts as well, just so that we're well positioned with options depending on where we go, what the direction is. We don't even know what this year's budget looks like, let alone next year's. So to have these options, to have these mechanisms, to have them starting to put them in place and walk through them. I'm actually just saw an article today that Wall Street was telling companies to line up credit and do it now. And essentially that's what we're doing as well, because credit could freeze up. We don't know. We just don't know. So this is exceptionally proactive. It is just putting things in place so that if we need them, we will have done all the legwork ahead of time and hopefully, put ourselves in a very good position to survive what might be some very trying times. So thank you.
Thank you.
If I could throw a comment in there, Bill, you're leaving us. You probably have vacation time that you could be using right now and just saying, hey, I'm going to take a little bit of time off before I get into the next, out of fire. And you're sticking your neck out and you're doing us to where we will survive better because of doing things proactively. I just want to personally thank you for that. For this, if this is what you do. This is why you do it. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you, Rob. I don't start getting emotional. Love Waterford, and I'm going to do everything to the last minute, last hour, last second to make sure that everything is in good stead for the year to come. And Waterford's been very good to me and my family. So just take it from there.
Damn it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. We'll move on now. Bill will keep the stage here. We're going to move on to 8C, the revised budget here. And I believe this is where I'm going to make you the host, Bill.
Yep.
Okay, you should have capabilities here, Bill.
What exactly do you guys see? Do you see the budget?
We see your PowerPoint.
Okay, good. All right, because I didn't quite see that on mine. So anyway, all right. So Amy and I are going to, Amy just chime in at any point during this presentation. But really, what you're going to see here is you're going to see pretty much this much of the same data, which is just a few updates or lack thereof from Lansing and so forth. So we're gonna roll. We have two information items. It's a revised budget and the original budget. So let's go back to May 15th, the revenue conference. Obviously, it showed a $1.1 billion shortfall in the state aid, school aid fund. That's $700 per student. That estimate still stands. That hasn't changed. Obviously, because of the concern about how things are and the extension of the IRS deadline for taxes, they've set up the August revenue conference to have a second review. Normally only do it once or twice a year. And now they're going to do it. This will be a third time. They're going to have it in August. Really just a 3-month gap between when they did the last time. So the estimate still stands. The legislature has options, but you have to. The Treasury has to officially inform the governor that there's a problem. And then once they do that, then starts a 30-day clock for action or lack of thereof. If there's no action from Treasury after that information goes to the governor from Treasury, then a proration will go into effect, and it'll be about the $700. However, Treasury hasn't officially informed the governor that there's a problem yet, so no action has occurred. Also, looking for funds elsewhere, no federal action has occurred yet either. So that's everything in red on here are the updates from our last discussion. And again, what the $700 means to us is $5.7 million just in this fiscal year alone. And I talked about the August revenue conference, and then we don't know exactly where we're going to be in this whole process until, I know the economy is just coming up to speed, not even fully up to speed yet, and restrictions totally lifted. So there won't be really enough information in a short period of time here to know how much of an impact economically has happened. We just know right now it's a $1.1 billion shortfall. Could be worse depending on, if things ramp up in the fall or something like that. And if the economy doesn't come up to speed fast enough as it's reopened, it could have further impact. So this is what we presented last time. We show that basically these two columns are the same. We would have the first column to your left there, the $2.4 million at the bottom would be our annual surplus. We have really in this, we have two options here for this current fiscal year. One is to just say nothing's going to happen. We're going to have $2.4 million, and in the next slide you'll see how much more that adds to our fund balance, where would it be? Or this one. We have, unfortunately, this $5.7 million potential, as I said, of a shortfall based on the fact that we could get a proration this year. That would set our annual deficit, just our annual deficit, not our true district cumulative deficit, but just the annual deficit, to $3.3 million. So we get on here, if you look at the left, that $2.4 million added to our current fund balance would put us almost at $12 million, $11.8 million in fund balance. So we have about a 12.14% fund balance. However, as you can see, if the proration goes in for the 1920 year, it would bring our fund balance down to $6,082,000. Still above the 5% protocol, it's 6.24, still in a good position according to Treasury. However, you can see it just deteriorates very fast. It's almost a 50% reduction. So let's move into, well, before I do that, is there any questions on the 1920 budget? As you can see right now, we were hoping that at the last meeting we'd be able to have the revised budget presented to you, and we still don't know. So we're moving this to the 18th board meeting, unfortunately, because we're holding out hope that we'll get more information. But by that time, if we have no information, we're going to have to make some determinations of just going with the worst case scenario or just basically figuring things out from here. So the 2-week clock is really ticking from tonight to know where we're truly at. And as you see in the next slides, 2021, it doesn't get any better. But there are, we're offering up, different scenarios in here so I can show you what potentially could happen. So we presented this. This would be the 2021 fiscal year standalone. So if we were to have no proration, then we would have another $159,000, almost $160,000 in additional funds to add to the fund balance. So when I said it's 11.8, it's going to 11.9, almost $12 million if nothing occurs. Rather, that means there's federal bailout, federal loans, or something done at the state level. I'm not sure, but that would be probably your best case scenario. Again, if the $700 proration happens in the 1920 fiscal year, that is going to be your new base foundation allowance per student for 2021. So it's going to be down $700. That cost, or really it's a structural problem that carried over from the year before. It's $5.5 million. So when you add it all together, your deficit for the year under this scenario is $5.3 million. So in the first column here, best case scenario, we have no proration for 1920 or 2021. And we have, we would end up with $11,993,000 fund balance, or 12.2%. We'd be in very good shape. This is your best case scenario. In this column here, let's assume that we don't get a proration. Treasury has not informed the governor. We're not sure if this is intentional. It certainly appears to be intentional. That they're moving their notification to the governor into the 2021 fiscal year. If that happens and we have a $700 proration during that period of time, then we would still have the $11,833,000 from 1920, but then we would have the structural foundation loss of, or the $700 per student, just over $5.3 million. That would leave us with the $6,500,000 fund balance. Roughly 6.72%. If we get a proration in the structural in 1920, and that structural change in revenue stays through for 2021, then we move pretty quickly through the fund balance, and you get yourself down to $747,000, or 0.77% of a fund balance. So as you can see in all three scenarios, it can go from a very good outcome to a very bad outcome. Now, all districts are facing this. We're lucky that we're not in deficit. This shows that we still stay above deficit. Many districts are going to go into deficit if this scenario goes ahead. What this will do, though, is it'll keep you out of deficit. It'll keep us in good stead to move forward for the years ahead if the economy rebounds and goes back to normal. Whether there's a vaccine on the market, whatever would make people comfortable about going back to the restaurants fully, going back to the movies, and all those different things, putting people all back to work. But you would still stay ahead. You'd still be above the technical deficit. You'd be below the 5%, but I think Treasury's going to be pretty busy with a lot of people below 5%. In fact, they're going to be more busy with people in deficit. So I doubt that we'll be on their radar even if it went down to this low amount. This doesn't include, the potential of reductions. You can always make reductions to buy you some more, to lessen the shortfall. This is quite an impact all at once and to handle in 1 year, so I doubt that you can fix the problem all in 1 year, but you can certainly make it more, you can shallow it out to make sure it doesn't have as deep of an impact. So that's basically where we'd be in the worst case scenario. You know what? I'm sorry. Amy, do you have anything to say? Are you good? Maybe she's on mute. I don't know. So like I said, the 30-day proration clock starts once Treasury informs the governor. They have not done that, as I said. Again, we're not sure if it's intentional or not. What confuses this whole process is that you have to remember that the state's budget is October 1st through September 30th, whereas our budget is July 1st through June 30th. So there's overlapping fiscal years that can cause them to stall the proration. However, what our concern is if they stall the proration, are they just going to make it twice as much in the 2021 year? Are they going to say, here's $700, you're good, and then come December, January, do a proration at that point? We don't know. We just don't know at this time. Maybe in the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to hear and have some more information from Lansing or even from Washington, D.C. at that point. Right now, we're just kind of left in limbo, all districts, and trying to figure out what scenario to take. And to back up a little bit, I'd like to point out this $747,000 fund balance in the worst case scenario. When we tell you about short-term borrowing, going back to the information item and the action item coming, the state pays us 2 months behind, and that's what drives short-term borrowing, is that 2-month lag. So 2/12 is 16.7%. So if you take the 0.77 there, or the $747,000, and the 16%, or 16% of 100 million is $16 million. So that's why we pegged the worst case scenario on short-term borrowing at $16 million, because you have $16 million plus this $700,000. So that gets you that 16.7, if that makes sense. So the timeline, we did an update on May 7th. We did another update on May 21st. As I said, we originally planned that would be the day that we would do action for the revised budget. Obviously, we're waiting till the 18th for both. And so on the 18th will be the 2021 budget hearing, along with the board taking action on that original budget and approving the revised budget. Now, the revised budget is one thing to approve by June 30th. However, the 2021 budget, the board can approve it with the parameters that we put in place. And it can be revised over the upcoming year as we find out more information from Lansing. Questions?
I just wanted to mention, thanks for all that information, Bill. I think that we're looking at a best case scenario, somewhere in the middle, and then a worst case scenario type situation that brings us down to that 0.77 fund balance. What I heard from my government relations committee, we had a meeting yesterday, was that there's talk within the legislature of no reductions for this fiscal year for schools, but then, like you had mentioned, the option could be then a double up next year. So we could get hit hard now, and then hit hard again next year, or get doubly hit hard next year. Or, then there's the whole aspect of what the federal government would look like, and what kind of funds would come from there. The idea that I have, and just speaking at the federal with our congressperson at the federal level, is that if there are federal funds that are going to be available, the catch to that would be that we could potentially be in a situation where that is divvied out not just for public schools, but also could be included charters and on private schools. So that's another scenario where we could lessen the amount that we could receive. But we don't know. There's so many unknowns. As you mentioned, our budget year runs separate from the state and from the federal. So there are many unknowns. But I appreciate the information and giving us it. I know initially when we looked at everything, things looked pretty decent on that first talk on the budget. Last meeting, it looked, like what it's looking like now. But I know we have some hope that maybe it won't be as bad as we think, or somewhere in the middle. Thank you.
Yep. What I'd like to see, at a minimum, if the federal government isn't going to come up with a plan, at a minimum, what would be nice is to, and I don't know if this constitutionally or how this would work, but the potential of, and maybe your groups you can mention this, that potentially maybe they don't want to hand the states the money. But what if they sold 10-year treasury notes and loaned the states the money, so the $700 can be paid back over a 10-year period, so the $700 becomes a $70 plus interest impact. And that may be a good compromise where it's acceptable to everyone at the table to where it lessens the blow. Now it does put a burden on the next generation, and I'm not always for that, but in this situation it's so severe that there may have to be some form of a process here to help. Good point. Joan, you had a question?
Well, first, on that exact suggestion that you had, have you shared that with anyone? It's almost like that they decided to pay for the roads, where they essentially sold bonds, I think, to pay for the roads rather than taking it out of current budget dollars. Is there some way we could take that suggestion and elevate it, escalate it?
Yes, I was planning on the next meeting with Andrea to go through that and see if it has legs, or if we could do something like that. She could take it to the next level with the appropriate people to know. And there may be some politics here where they're just stalling to see if they just get the money without having to pay it back. But at least the idea would be out there to know that there's options. And as we plan our budgets, if we know that, hey, maybe there might be a loan situation that's going to be repaid over a longer period of time, this may be more palatable. So yes, I'd like to get it to Andrea and see where it goes.
I think it's a brilliant idea, and I can't remember what my other question was.
It's okay.
Sorry about that.
It's all right.
Hey, Bill, regarding the timeline, so we're due to vote on this on the 18th, but then there's still 2 weeks until June 30th. What would, and I know you mentioned it briefly here, but as the newbie here, help me understand what would happen if we take action on the 18th. On the 25th, we get some meaningful information from either the state or the federal government. How would that influence these two budgets? And are there options for us as a board to put the district in the best standing possible if some information did come through within that nearly 2 weeks?
From a revised budget situation, we could hold another board meeting and revise the revised budget. However, if we go with the worst case scenario, the only thing that will happen is it will just come in better than expected. So there's no problem. I'm not sure. I have to look back and know what the legal ramifications are. When you hold a budget hearing, you got to advertise it for a certain amount of days. I believe it's 6 days or something like that. So that may cause some complexity there. Actually, Amy and I are more concerned about the fact that, and this is why we're trying to get more guidance, we're more concerned about not so much something happening on the 25th of June, but happening on the 19th of August, which would be the day before we receive our last state aid payment. So we received the state aid payment on the 20th, and that would be the last one. That's our receivable. July and August is a from the state's perspective, is payable to us for the 1920 fiscal year, because they're paying 2 months behind. And that's why that's why we're doing short-term borrowing. So the July and August payment being related to the 1920, could they short us on the August payment? And then it's really, by that time, it's way too late to take any board action to fix any of this.
So at that point, we'd be dipping into general fund.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, and at that point, what we've approved at our June 18th meeting is completely invalid. And that's the problem. We've approved a revised budget for 2019-2020 that is not accurate now. So what we're saying.
Now, what I would add to this is that the Treasury Department is real sticklers on the fact that if you have appropriated funds, so you're going to appropriate roughly $97, $98 million. And we're going to spend it, but they look at your bottom line and see, did you come in as expected or did you go over budget? And in that process, if you went over budget, it doesn't necessarily mean that we spent more than what you appropriated, but we did come in, over budget because our revenues didn't come in. And so that becomes a concern as to the fact that if I say, or Amy and I say that we're going to have, $6.5 million in our fund balance, and we actually have $747,000, because of the August proration, Treasury will, more than likely, they will be like, yeah, there's nothing you can do to fix that, and they won't send us a letter. But they could technically call us out on the fact that you didn't budget appropriately. Now, they'd be hard pressed to actually accuse us of that if they added in what they took from us in that proration and found that we were okay. I just don't see it being a real contentious point, but just from a technical standpoint, they could say you didn't budget appropriately.
But every district would be in that situation.
Exactly. Yeah. Unless they budgeted for the $747,000 scenario. If they budgeted this, then they wouldn't be in that scenario.
So would it be advisable to go with that worst case scenario, knowing that we then come in better, which is always fine?
Well, that's probably more than likely what you're going to see.
Yeah.
If we don't get anything from Lansing in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
Amy?
Yeah.
Okay, there you are.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, that's kind of what we have to go with. If we don't have any information, like Bill said, if what we're afraid of is that this August revenue estimating conference, that they're going to wait for that. And then the problem is if they wait for that and then they put the letter out, that really, are they going to take something away in August, or are they going to put the letter out and have 30 days and then look at September? But if they look at September, we've already been paid out. So then are they going to ask for money back, or are they going to take it back in October? And then your state aid foundation is now at a new minimum.
Right.
I'd like to point out that we are looking at the 2021 budget screen. So really the $6,082,000 where the arrow is, the $6,082,498, that truly would be where the revised budget would be, for this current year, the 1920 revised budget. So it wouldn't be 747. The 747 is for 2021.
And I agree with Bill too about, revising the 2021 original budget. We can do that at any point in the new year. So meaning July on, we can do that at any point. But to your point, we really probably can't turn back around even if we do get more information and meet the deadline for another hearing for the 2021.
Okay. I would say that from our perspective, Amy, my perspective, this is probably the worst task to figure out that we've ever had in the years that we've been in the business. We really can't. I mean, it's frustrating to come to a board meeting and tell you that we can't tell you what it's going to be. We can give you these scenarios, guessing of what knowing what the number shortfall is from the revenue conference. We can give you worst case scenario and plan for that and just move forward. But it's very difficult and frustrating for us to not be able to come to a board meeting and just tell you this is what it's going to be and this is what we're going to have to do moving forward. We just don't know.
There's just so many unknowns. Not even just dollar wise. There's so many unknowns for everything that it's difficult to even say what the next step could possibly be.
Is it safe to say that I imagine this there's no incentive for the state to withhold that information until August 19th, except for if things are just so terrible there, right? I mean, it would not be in the state's best interest to hold on to that information unless it's just so dire up there. Am I correct in
They're in the same boat as we are. They don't know a lot of these factors that go into it. So, they again don't have a crystal ball. So they're in the same boat we are. They're just waiting to see how everything comes back, how the economy comes back, how everyone's fear level is regarding, the pandemic.
And I think too, they're trying to figure out from an economic standpoint, there's things that are lost that'll never come back. Like the gas tax or, those type of things where if I didn't travel to work, every day, or if you're laid off or something like that, and you're not traveling, well, that pent-up demand is not going to come back. It just lost. Right. However, I hear that the people that are selling cars, they're not calling people back for 5 days, even a week. If you call them and said, hey, I'm looking for a car, blah, 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 they're not calling you back because they're just so busy. So that pent-up demand may catch up. So there may be a lot of sales tax revenue from that, which, could spur economic activity and confidence. But you'll never get back the lost revenue for the flights that, for work and things like that. If you're traveling out of town for work all the time, they're just lost. And then trying to figure out, at this point it's an election year, so nobody wants to go in to say, hey, schools have been cut substantially, so there's hope that maybe something will happen because of that. We just don't know, though. Nobody's, unfortunately, nobody's talking.
And I think that there are so many variables, like you all were mentioning, as far as what their budget's going to look like and how fast the economy is going to come back. And even when we look at our own school districts and how we're going to operate in the fall, and how is that going to play into our budget, those are so many things. And as we've all now been living through this for the past 2.5 months, is that things can change in a day, in 2 days. What we thought was supposed to be one day now has changed completely a day later. So it's just, I guess, we move forward and do the best we can. Thank you.
Should I exit out of the PowerPoint?
Yep, any other questions for Bill or Amy around the budget?
It sounds like it sucks.
That about sums it up, Rob. Well said.
That's the best. I've been thinking for words to use, but yeah, I have no other words. There's just nothing good, and it's not our fault or the state's fault. It's a situation we're in. There's no person or people to blame. We got to suck it up. And I know we will. It just sucks.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Bill. We're going to hold on to you here while we move on to agenda item 8E, our millage rates 2021.
So, as I mentioned, the 18th is the budget hearing. A lot of things people sometimes overlook as part of the budget hearing is also setting the millage rate. So the board has to have a hearing on the budget, and they also have to set the budget or the millage rate every year. So this is just telling you that we're remaining at the 18 mills and the 6.75 mills for the 18 mills on the non-homestead property and the 6.75 on the debt.
And for our listening community, that means there is no increase in the tax mills that are being levied. So that's great news.
Other questions for Bill on the millage? Okay, Bill. 8F, our 2021 meal price.
Yeah, before I get to that, under the COVID-19, I forgot to add the fact that, our school year is over June 12th, as you're all aware, and that also is that Friday is the last delivery date for our normal food program. So what we're doing is from then on, we will deliver under the summer feeding program at Mason Middle School only. And we will be distributing on the 12th, because the 16th is when we start, so that's a Tuesday. So on the 12th, we'll be distributing enough food to get you through Monday, and then start up on Tuesday if you need food. But again, it's only at Mason Middle School every Tuesday. And that is from, I think, 11 to 12:30. So meal prices. Meal prices are the same as they were last year, and they were the same. I think 16, 17 was the last time we actually increased prices. So it's a good job from the food service team for holding prices steady in our community.
Couldn't we raise the prices to generate funds, or is that not allowable?
It would have to stay in the food service department. It's a federal program, so those federal funds would have to be distributed somehow back into the program.
So it's not a a revenue source for us of trying to fix a hole somewhere else.
No. However, food service contributes, I believe, almost 300 or just over $300,000 a year in an indirect. So we're allowed an indirect calculation under federal rules, and we maximize that out to get to the general fund.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Yep.
So, Bill, the summer program, is that going to be like the normal summer program, so where it runs every day from that 11 to 12:30?
No, it'll only be Tuesdays for distribution for food for the whole week.
Oh, just Tuesdays for distribution.
Yep. And then the old program, sorry, go ahead, John.
Oh, at Mason, correct.
At Mason only. So the other sites that you're normally used to coming through are going to be closed, and it'll be through Mason for the summer. The major difference between this program and last year's program is that the summer feeding program was congregate. So it was obviously the kids will not be coming in to play games and eat on site like they were last year. So, and the other thing too is to add is that where the parents need to come in instead of the front of the building, it's going to be in the bus loop, which is on the east side of Mason.
Also, I got fired from the best volunteer job I've ever had in my life.
You did a fantastic job.
So, Bill, the setup for it is going to be much like how it is now, where they come through. It's going to be the same thing then, right? And we just pass the food out to them. Okay, perfect.
Joan, how do you get fired from a volunteer position?
Well, because the program is ending and food service employees are taking it over, starting with that Tuesday 5-day distribution. It's been remarkable, and I've absolutely loved every minute and all the people that I've met and connecting with the community. And honestly, on a personal note, incredibly meaningful to me to have a purpose during such a dark time when it just was so hard to not do anything. It was so great. Such an amazing group.
And that's a very positive, giving some thought to. You got fired from a volunteer position.
I know, I'm trying to spin it. Here.
Positive. Good.
I would echo that as well. Our food service workers are just doing amazing things during this whole COVID time. And I've been volunteering over at some of the schools as well on Fridays, and just the interaction with the people in the community, and like Joan said, being able to do something meaningful and helpful to the community during this time is definitely been heartwarming and heartfelt. But kudos to Sam and the team in the food service and all the volunteers, because people are out there really doing what they can to help this community. Thank you.
Joan, it was much appreciated the fact that your production from the General Motors side of the business, production for food, really paid off. You helped institute quite a, because there's quite a change of the delivery model for food service, and so gearing up in the beginning was switching all of our, food in from all of our different sites and so forth. So your production techniques and so forth were very helpful and beneficial to the program for sure.
Oh, thank you. Who knew setting up an assembly line that it would be transferable to a school district?
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty great.
I would like to point out too is that even though it's a Tuesday only delivery or distribution, it is for 5 days, and it is for breakfast and lunches, so you'll have both meal components.
Mr. Bill, here on our meal price and our summer program.
What's that?
I was just asking for any other questions for you regarding the meal price. Okay, excellent. Hey Bill, before we could hover over my picture on your screen and then send me back those host capabilities, please?
I had this trouble before, and I think Lisa helped me because the first time I was able to send it right back to you, I can't do that anymore, and I don't know why.
You know what, Bill? Hover over Mike's picture.
Yeah.
And you'll see a blue box with 3 dots in the corner.
Yeah.
Click on that box and it should say,
Got
make
it.
post. Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks. It sounds so creepy. Hover over his picture. Wow. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Bill. We'll give you a little bit of a reprieve here. We're going to ask Janet to come on up here and talk to us about agenda item E, our continuing employment of teaching personnel.
Good evening. I'm actually going to talk about the next 2 information items, and they're being presented to address the reemployment of teaching and administrative staff. I would like to note that these are individual contracts and they do not include benefit language. These will be presented as action items at the next board meeting on June 18th. Any questions?
Questions for Janet around these 2 agenda items?
Oh, a little bit. I want to give Jen a little bit of heck here because she's leaving us also. Janet, yeah. Twitter. That's all. I'm missing you already.
I'm retiring.
Yeah, retiring. Yeah.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah. No, it's you've done a heck of a job. I've come to love and understand and trust what you do. And again, I've not always trusted administrators, but again, my current group is I enjoy very much. And again, I don't know how much longer you're going to be here. I think you're going to be going really quick. I'm going to miss you. You've done a heck of a job, and it takes me time to trust people again. And I don't like to have to do that. It's all about me. I don't want to change. I want you to stay here. The heck with all of your plans. It's about me. But thank you for what you've done.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. I will miss everyone as well.
You still have one more meeting with us, right? The 18th?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, not Bill. She's taking vacation. That's part of it. You understand the programs.
Well, she is retiring. That's
Yes.
Then I'm going to just piggyback and Janet.
How do I mute myself?
There's a button at the top that has like a microphone that says mute.
Yeah, that would be my wife that would do that for me. But yeah, I'm here. Boom. Too bad.
We are so grateful for your contributions over these last several years, Janet. It's been such a pleasure to work with you, and I know that the job was often thankless and often not easy, and you always persevered with integrity and transparency and such grace. And the Waterford School District is all the better for your contributions. So we are very grateful for all that you've done for us, and wish you nothing but happiness and health and joy in this next chapter of your life, Janet.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Do we have any questions for Janet, or we can continue lobbing praise? That's what deserves. So
We're just lobbing it at. No, I'm pissed. She's leaving. I don't want her to go. I like her. Sorry, my bad. Mute. Where's that mute again? Yeah.
all right, thank you, Janet.
Thank you.
We're going to move on now to 8I, continuing employment of superintendent. And I provided members of the board with the revised contract between the Waterford School District and Superintendent Lindberg. The only proposed change to the contract is the 1-year extension, which maintains a 3-year contract. July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2023, consistent with the continuing employment of teachers and administrators and recommendations presented at the next Board of Education meeting. Are there any comments or questions?
I just would mention in public that though we're not evaluating Scott in the normal fashion that we would, with this requirement generally as had several meetings with him through the year with regard to
I would give it a month.
evaluation.
I would give it a month and revisit.
But I just want to give kudos to Scott for the work that he's done, especially in light of all of this COVID situation and these unprecedented times, and even his team here, you know, all of you doing the work that you've done, maneuver and navigate everything, graduations and trying to feed kids and all of this. So I appreciate your efforts and your leadership, Scott. Thank you.
Jump on. I'm glad you bring up that point.
Okay.
One thing I did, I was wondering, and this is a question for my colleagues here, and something I didn't mention, Scott and I had a conversation about, is although the superintendent evaluation has been waived, we still have the option, if we wanted to actually engage in that process. It would be a much more informal and a non-binding process, but we could use, if there was interest in sitting down with Scott and going over that evaluation tool, if there was interest in it. And I think the benefits, I'm not making a recommendation, I'm asking a question. If there was interest in that, it might be useful for us as a board and as a team of 8 to give Scott some clear direction moving into what's going to be a really difficult summer and fall. So if there was interest amongst the board to do that, I know that Scott, I mentioned this to him just briefly in an earlier conversation. He said he would be open to it. But if the board is interested in just going ahead and voting and going ahead as planned on the 18th, we can certainly do that. So I'm gonna invite a little conversation here amongst my colleagues about what they might think about that, if they have any opinions.
I'm good with voting on the 18th.
Yeah, as well, Mike. I think everybody knows, I've made it very clear that I am a huge fan of Scott. I think when he interviewed for this position and this board voted unanimously to hire him for our next superintendent, we all got behind him. I know he was not ready for what has transpired in the last 4 or 5 months. None of us have, but his communication to this board has been A+++. And he's, I know, put in a lot of hours, as has everybody, on the screen, our whole staff. But I'm so happy to have Scott here as our superintendent. I think he's doing a phenomenal job. And, I as far as giving direction, I think when we met about the superintendent evaluation, we kind of went over what kind of our goals were, staff retention and family retention and academics. And so for me, that hasn't changed. And as far as direction, he's the pro, he's the expert, and he has a team of experts with him that know much more than I do what needs to be done, and I have full trust in him and the entire staff here in Waterford. So I just kudos to him and everybody for what they've done.
I would just add that I agree with Julie with moving forward, but I do like what the model that we have started of meeting back with Scott quarterly to really go over that evaluation process, because like Mike, what you said is that it's very important that he has clear direction on what we're looking for as a board, and if there are any things that any board member wants to bring to the forefront that they would like to see changed or improved. So I would be in support of us moving continuously, again, as MASB has taught us with that model of quarterly meetings. But I'm okay with moving forward with the next meeting for the contract. Thank you.
Thanks. It might, and again, I think it'll be useful for all of us sometime in the near future here to do exactly what John Paul said, because I think this summer and into the fall, it might throw some of those goals that we have set for Scott. We might have to revisit those just to see how much they might be attainable within our current moment. But I do appreciate Scott being willing to have these conversations and being open to always receiving feedback. So thank you. But just know that we're gonna make sure we continue to do that. Yeah, Rob.
Yeah. Again, it's because again the goals that we have set for him are unattainable, I believe. But again, they are still goals. These are things that we grade him on. Is this what we expected? Is it because he couldn't do it, or they're unobtainable? Again, I think your thought of maybe bringing it up so we can have that conversation. Again, if I just look at black and white, did we obtain these goals? No. Is it his fault? I do not believe so. But it's something that we need to reinforce, that there needs to be a direction, a leadership that is, I feel comfortable in going forward. And again, I don't want to put anything against him, but we set goals and we did not obtain them. But they weren't his fault. But I just want to make sure that again, if we're calling it black and white, it didn't happen. So again, I like your idea of having that conversation to get it out there. But again, I don't know if it's necessary, but I just want to put my 2 cents worth in.
So over the next couple of weeks, then, it sounds like we can go forward. It sounds like there's interest in moving forward on the 18th. But I do, for the sake of everything that Rob just talked about, making sure that we're all on the same page and moving forward, and there are as few surprises as we can manage. I think we'll, as a board here, have to figure out when it might be useful for us to revisit those, just to make sure that we head into this really difficult time feeling good and feeling confident about what we need to do.
President Ristich?
Yes.
I think we did talk about doing a quarterly review.
Yes.
And perhaps that's one of the agenda items that we can do in our committee of the whole as a standing agenda item. It doesn't have to be the whole meeting, but it might be a good thing to have a placeholder to ensure that we are talking about it as a collective group, so that, again, there aren't any surprises.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, as we're looking at, our teachers, our administrators, our whole group with our superintendent, it goes hand in hand. To me, it's one is with the other. It's a team effort. And I want to make sure that we keep focus on that team effort.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Then we're going to go forward, but expect that we'll start to make these plans around our quarterly info sessions and making sure that just as we head into this difficult time, we're putting our best foot forward. So, thank you, colleagues. We're going to move on now to 8J, our board meeting structure. I haven't heard from any of you, and I take that's a good sign. I'll invite questions or comments. Again, we've sent those. Megan has worked so diligently to put those materials together for us around adopting a committee of the whole structure, which we hope to do in August. Are there any questions or concerns? If there aren't any, then we'll just go forward.
Is this the right thing to do?
I think so, Rob.
Okay.
I think. Okay.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. All right, team. Again, you feel free to reach out, email me, shoot me a text, call me. We can talk about that if there are questions. Let's move on now to agenda item 9, our new business. Treasurer Sutherland.
Superintendent's recommendation 98-19-20, resolution in support of federal COVID funding. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following resolution in support of federal COVID funding for Michigan schools, and I so move.
The motion has been moved and supported. Are there comments or questions?
Nope. Roll call vote. Member Sutherland.
Yes.
Member Piggott.
Yes.
Member Ristic.
Yes.
Member Joslin.
Yes.
Member Torres.
John Paul, you're on mute.
Yes.
Thank you. And I am also a yes.
Okay, and the motion carries 6-0. Agenda item 9.2, short-term borrowing, Treasurer Sutherland.
Superintendent's recommendation 99-19-20, short-term borrowing for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the attached resolution authorizing short-term borrowing for the 2020-2021 school year, not to exceed $16 million based on cash flow obligations, and I so move.
Support.
The motion has been moved and supported. Are there any comments or questions?
I have a comment. I tend not to like voting on things that we get information on that night. Or at the same time, we usually need a little bit of time to adapt or to absorb the information. This is something that it's blatantly obvious. It needs to be done. I have no problem with supporting this in moving forward because these are the things that come up at last minute. We need to move forward, and I'm hoping during our new style of meetings that we'll still be able to vote on things if they come up. That's one of my concerns with the meeting is going to a informational and not being able to vote if I have to vote. I want to make sure we stay on top of things and not adding frivolous but informational and important items. That's all.
Other comments or questions?
Then roll call. Member Sullivan.
Yes.
Member Bigot.
Yes.
Member Ristic.
Yes.
Member Joslin.
Yes.
Member Torres.
Yes.
And I am a yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 6-0.
Superintendent's recommendation 100-19-20, Kids Read Now. It is recommended that the Waterford School District offer an alternative summer reading program for all JK through 3rd grade students that meets the phases of the Stay Home, Stay Safe executive order and aligns in our state's Read by Grade 3 law. The program is titled Kids Read Now. The cost of this program is $34.95 per student, with a total cost of $80,874.30. The funding sources to support the cost of this purchase include a donation from the Waterford Foundation, an MDE Summer School Reading Program grant, and Federal CARES Act funding. I so move.
Support.
The motion has been moved and supported. Are there comments or questions?
You have a quick question. Lisa, I don't know if you can answer this, or Bill. The funding source, I know that first of all, shout out to the Waterford Foundation. Thank you for your generous support of our school district and for this Kids Read Now initiative. It's an exceptionally important initiative. I'm wondering how much of the Federal CARES Act funding that we are consuming. Do you know with this particular purchase?
Yes, I believe it's about $30,000. Carly, am I right on that? Yeah, about $30,000.
Okay. I know we keep chipping away at that, and I appreciate it, and I'm glad that it's not general fund dollars, but those do become general fund dollars in a crisis. So in many ways. So just wanted to ask. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to mention that I want to thank the foundation for their help and assistance on this. Reading is vital, especially during this era of COVID-19. I appreciate the writing prompts and the guided information for the parents to work with the kids on, and the fact that it is included in this is multicultural options and bilingual options, which is fantastic that was thought of. Thank you.
Carly, did you want to say something? I saw you mute on well.
I was just going to say, considering the total cost is over $80,000 for all of the kids, and we're only touching $30,000 of about $30,000 to $34,000. I don't remember the number off the top of my head. And CARES Act funding is really great. I would get about $30,000 from the Michigan Department of Education, plus a significant contribution from the Waterford Foundation, as they weren't able to support Sweet Reads this year because of the COVID epidemic. So I agree with you, Joan. We want to be careful with those funds. We're just very appreciative that we kept them as minimal as we could.
No, I agree. It's a great result, a great collaborative effort, and really grateful for the support of the MD Summer Reading Program as well as, and especially the Waterford Foundation. So thank you for the work that you put into that. I know that doesn't happen without a lot of behind the scenes work. It's really great.
You know, if I could give a shout out to the foundation also, again, they've had to shut down their fundraising, their golf outing this year, which is their largest fundraiser, I believe, for the year. And they're still giving us money. So, I mean, they're losing money because they're not gaining it, and they're still promoting our programs. That's huge. It's a great organization.
And I think too, it's a shout out to Mary Lou. We love Mary Lou, and I know the foundation said that this is right up her alley. Kids and literacy and books, it would make her very proud. So it's all connected, and again, we're just so appreciative.
Thank you, everyone. Roll call vote. Secretary Patricia?
Roll call vote. Member Sutherland?
Yes.
Member Biggin?
Yes.
Member Ristic?
Yes.
Member Jocelyn?
Yes.
Member Torres?
Yes.
And I am also a yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 6-0. Okay, excellent. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to agenda item number 10, our superintendent's report. Superintendent Lindberg.
Thank you, President Ristich. I just want to, first of all, thank the team here as we're coming up on the end of my first year. And I think Member Petruccio had talked about the team and just how we've come together and the conversations and the work that we're doing. Thank you to every one of them here, and Nadine, Darren, Amy, Janet, Kelly, Bill, Carly, and Lisa, and Megan, who's not on the screen, but just an awesome team. Thank you for your support and during these unprecedented times. I do have a couple of comments that I wanted to share with all of you tonight. As the school year comes to an end, I've had the chance to reflect on my first year as superintendent here at the Waterford School District. Just like our students, I have had a year of tremendous learning and personal growth. As we all know, the 2019 and 2020 school year has certainly presented a number of challenges. However, I am incredibly proud of my team for tackling those challenges and finding the opportunities within. That goes for the entire district, our teaching staff, our custodial, our bus drivers, every one of us has had to make changes and work through those. The Waterford School District took the opportunity to take teaching and learning to a new level using technologies and new approaches to ensure our students remain engaged in teaching and learning during these unprecedented times. We were able to enhance the communication with our stakeholders, soliciting feedback to ensure that all of their voices were heard. We made sure that all of our children in Waterford had access to healthy meals every day, serving over 380,000 meals in our community since May 13th. We found opportunities to move forward with construction projects, budget planning that's ongoing, a future bond proposition that we continue to work on for August 4th, and that will provide financial security for our district for years to come. So we're working on things for the future as well as working through the challenges today. We also found opportunities to take care of our amazing staff and ensure their health and safety. I am confident that our staff stands ready to adapt to all that the next school year will bring. And for those who are retiring this year, congratulations. I would like to offer my appreciation for your contributions during these challenging times and throughout your entire career with the Waterford School District. We wish you the best in this new and exciting chapter of your life. While we know there are a lot of unanswered questions regarding 2021, I want to reassure this entire community that we are working through these issues and will continue to find the opportunities and the challenges we face. And we will do this together as a team. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Moving on now to agenda item 11, our audience comments on non-action items. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? If you would like to address the board, you can raise your hand virtually. It's one of the options available to you on Zoom. Okay. Mary Crate. Hi, Mary, if you can unmute yourself.
Hi. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Maria.
Hi. I just wanted to take this opportunity as I'm getting close to wrapping up my third year as the union president to personally thank Janet. While parts of your job, Janet, may have been thankless, working with me definitely couldn't be one of those. I think we've worked together very well, and I truly enjoyed that and learned a lot from you. So a new HR director is going to have tough shoes to fill. So I just wanted to personally take time to thank you and wish you the best of luck. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? If you'd like to address the board, you just have to raise your hand. It's one of the options available to you on your screen. Okay, one more invitation here. Excellent, thank you. Let's move on now to our Board of Education reports. Colleagues, any reports? John Paul, you're on mute.
All right, thank you. So the Chamber of Commerce is distributing reopen kits for local businesses with 50 employees or less. So if you're interested in obtaining one of those, they were distributing them today. I was there earlier today, and I believe they still have quite a few more left. So they will be putting out the information on their website and contact information for when they will be available for distribution again. But they include facial masks, rubber gloves, spray, Lysol type spray, and a number of other products that were helpful. Oh, and a thermometer so that you can take people's temperatures as they come in on their forehead, which is really a commodity right now. I know those are not easy to come by. Oakland schools, I had my government relations committee last night. I spoke a little bit about that already, so I won't go back over that. We talked a lot about the funding, and then the other thing we talked a lot about was creating a task force for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I will be part of that task force with Oakland schools, as will a board member from Southfield and likely from Oak Park. And I believe we are trying to get other board members from other school districts on that. And we will go forward with some recommendations to Oakland schools that will be distributed out to local school districts on diversity, inclusion, and equity. The governor also initiated a reopening of schools task force that was rolled out yesterday. So I know that was mentioned a little bit already. I think Bill mentioned about it. So the one critique on that is I think a lot of us thought it was a little bit late to be rolling that out because school districts are, we're still all trying to figure out what's going to happen in this task force that's been created. May have a lot of say in what we're going to be doing next year, and we're ending the school year already. So, but that's my report. Thank you.
Other board reports, colleagues?
I'll throw one out there. It's not that I miss seeing everyone, but I'm still intimidated by this process. I don't like talking into a screen. I'd rather see people. I'm a touchy-feely kind of guy. This is different. I don't like it. I want to give a shout out to you, Mike, as board president, as the new board member. I would like to say that it took me 3 to 5 years to get accustomed to basically what we're expecting, but it was probably about my third year I started to understand. I think I'm in my 22nd and I don't fully understand yet. But your ability to grasp what's going on, I want to publicly proclaim you as, it's amazing. People talk about how, well, just run the school district as a business, run government as a business. You can't. Government provides services. They're not here to make money. It's a completely different concept. It's not the same. But again, once you're duly elected, you think you're going to fix and reinvent things. We're providing services. That's what we're supposed to do. I think we do it very well. And Mike, I think you've done an absolutely wonderful job stepping in as a newbie, not understand these concepts. And again, I hold newbie people to less standards. But you're my president, so I hold you higher. My friends and family, I hold higher. I think you're doing a great job. I just want to publicly thank you for what you're doing.
Well, thank you for that, Rob. And I'm just trying to, you all, my colleagues, gave me, entrusted me with this position. I'm trying to honor your hard work, so, and to learn the lessons you've been teaching me. So thank you to all my colleagues, Bob, John Paul, Julie, Heather, Joan, and Rob. You guys have been really wonderful, so thank you. Other board reports? Yeah, Joan?
I just have two items. I'll try to be quick. First of all, I know with the recent homicide of Mr. Floyd and many that came before him, our country is really unquestionably in crisis. And our students and our school community are certainly impacted, processing really a myriad of emotions, hurt and fear and anger and frustration, and rightfully so. And during these really difficult times, we also have the COVID pandemic, and yet our schools, they play a very important role in all of this, in setting the example, in recognizing that we all have work to do, and not just as a school community, as a school district, but as a community and as a nation, and that we need to do it together. And so I was really so appreciative of the letter that came out to all of our families, and just wanted to thank the leadership for you, Scott, for that. It's really difficult, as Rob just said, to stay connected in a pandemic. But those words were very important, with resources, and even another important piece is having that conversation, making sure that we have these conversations. Because we all need to do this work and we need to do it together. I also, just as we wind down this school year, the 2019-2020 school year is going to go down in infamy. It's unprecedented. And I hope that the entire Waterford School District takes a moment to reflect really on the extraordinary contributions. It's unprecedented. None of us have seen anything like this. Certainly not in our lifetime, but our teachers, our administrators, our coaches, our staff members, our custodians, our food service, our transportation, our paras, our staff members, all staff members, well, you are remarkable. With determination and dedication and kindness, and honestly, on most days, just sheer will. You rolled up your sleeves and you pushed through these sometimes overwhelming obstacles, and you found a way to connect with our kids and our parents, and you found a way to creatively deliver instruction and to work together on finances and curriculum and getting new devices for our students and getting packets out, and you focused on helping our students and meeting them where they were at. And sometimes where they were at was just needing a familiar face, a reassuring voice, and the comfort of something that felt a little normal to them, their routine. So in all things, you put our students first, and you did it with extraordinary grace and compassion. And I just wanted to extend a heartfelt, sincere debt of gratitude. So and it's an extraordinary school year, and we are a grateful community for all that you have done. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Other board reports? Well, I'll just echo what my colleagues have said here tonight. Even though amongst COVID and what we're seeing around the protests and the homicide of George Floyd, we've seen the worst, but we've also seen the best of what we have to offer. And our teachers are doing a tremendous job. I mean, really, really, really. As a teacher myself, I know that my students are having a hard time, and so I can only imagine what it's like to have a class of 27 or 28 third graders, second graders, fourth graders, whatever it is. But
I know that our teachers are acting in ways and that are just remarkable, pushing us towards justice and equity and inclusivity. So fostering those hard to have conversations. So kudos to all of our teachers. They're amazing, and our leadership and our team here. So I think that's, unless there was anything else, a good place to end it. Okay, excellent. Thank you, everyone. We now need to move into closed session. So agenda item 13, by roll call vote, the Board of Education will recess to closed session to discuss the written opinion of legal. No action will be taken during closed session. The regular meeting will be adjourned at the conclusion of the closed session. Acting Secretary Patricia, would you please take roll call vote?
Yes. Member Sutherland.
Yes.
Member Piggott.
Yes.
Member Ristic.
Yes.
Member Jocelyn.
Yes.
Member Torres.
Yes.
And I'm also a yes.
Okay. Excellent. Colleagues, Megan did send us the Zoom information for meeting in our closed session. So we're going to close this out and we'll see you there shortly. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. And thank you to all our attendees. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
It's going to take me a few minutes to get into this other one, so.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to use
okay.
the first one.